Welcome back. Israel's new law enabling the government to bar entry to foreign citizens who publicly support the BDS movement to ban, divest from, or sanction Israel over its policies toward the Palestinians has aroused concern in several diaspora Jewish circles who feel that it goes too far. Rabbi Rabbi Jacobs, who heads the North American Reform Jewish movement that represents some 1.5 million Jews, sent a letter this week to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warning the BDS law could dissuade young Jews who oppose Israeli government policies from participating in future birthright trips. Let's go now to our New York studio and speak with Rabbi Jacobs. Rabbi Jacobs, welcome. Was there some specific incident or incidents that motivated you to write this letter?
Well, quite simply, the motivation to write this letter was the decision by the Knesset to, frankly, put a sign in front of the State of Israel saying, if anyone disagrees with the policies of the State of Israel, please don't come. And we got particular pushback from over 500 of our young college travelers to Israel on our Kesher birthright trip. These are about 500 students who are heading in the coming weeks to Israel, and because some of them have views about the settlements in particular, they were asking, can they be guaranteed that they will be admitted to the State of Israel? And that prompted me to write the open letter to the Prime Minister asking for clarification about this new law and whether or not we could guarantee those students that they would not only be heading off to their birthright trip, but they'd actually be allowed to enter and to have a magical 10 days in the State of Israel.
Rabbi Jacobs, what do you say to Israeli government officials here who say this law is discretionary, it's aimed only at the hardcore of BDS supporters, and that this would be something of an overreaction?
Well, to be honest, the law is a law. Whether it's discretionary when an official at Ben Gurion Airport would like to enforce it, frankly, that's not how governments work. If there's a law on the books, it's capable of being enforced any day, at any time, with anyone who fits within the criteria. So it's not overreaction. It's a direct request for clarification so that we would not have people, frankly, not planning trips to Israel or saying, you know what, there's a question mark about whether I would be admitted. I better just play it safe and not plan my trip altogether. It's not overreaction. The law is problematic, and it is in need of clarification.
Rabbi Jacobs, is it possible that this law intended to fight the BDS movement may actually harm the efforts, especially in North American Jewry, to combat the BDS movement?
I think that's exactly where we are. I fight on a daily basis against BDS. And frankly, very often, more progressive leaders within the Jewish community are invited into some of those very places that more conservative leaders would not be invited. And if the goal is to combat BDS, we would do better to bring those who have, question about a policy or two. The BDS movement globally questions Israel's very right to exist. That should not be confused with someone who has a question about a given governmental policy. Those are not the same people. So we want to be clear about where our real antagonists are, and they are the global BDS movement. And this law, by lumping everyone together, really weakens our ability to fight a global BDS.
Rabbi Jacobs, the reform movement has found itself in recent years at odds with the Netanyahu government over several issues. For example, access to the Western Wall for women who would like to conduct Torah services, there being one of them now, the BDS law. Where is the danger that perhaps the Netanyahu government will alienate your congregations from their traditional support for Israel?
Well, I would say that not only are we the largest and most diverse movement in North American Jewish life, we are so strongly connected to the State of Israel. But yes, government policies, particularly around the government decision 1.25 years ago to finally create an egalitarian pluralistic prayer space of the Western Wall, passed 15-5 in the cabinet, and it's now been long delayed by reaction from the ultra-Orthodox. There are a number of things, frankly, that we've been working very closely with the Netanyahu government very grateful to the Prime Minister for his leadership. But I have to say that recently there are a series of laws that just raise questions among people who do in fact love Israel but can't quite figure out how some of these policies serve the Jewish state. So yes, we are concerned, but our goal every day is to look beyond the headlines and to anchor the love of Israel among our movement to the core of what Israel is about, to her people, to her ideals. And yes, we do differ on certain key government policies, but we're working very hard to continuously strengthen the bonds between North American Jewry and Israel. But I have to say, some of these recent pieces of legislation, including the entry bill, make it more difficult.
Rabbi Rick Jacobs of the North American Reform Movement, thank you for being on The Rundown today.